I wish I knew how to quit you.
Then why don't you?
This is Codependent Content, a podcast where my partner and I discuss the TV shows, movies, and video games in which we've formed an unhealthy relationship. My name is Mattias, and my co-host is Shannon Riley. Join us each week as we try to make sense of the media we continually give our hearts against our better judgment, and commiserate with us as we struggle and fail to let go of the characters, stories, and worlds that we are entangled with. Because just when we think we're done with content, it draws us back in. Welcome everyone back to Codependent Content. We are talking about The Last of Us, episode 2, Infected. And yeah, we're just going to mostly jump right into it, I think. Well, before we do that, let's talk about, I guess, some quote-unquote feedback that we got last week when I posted a TikTok online about trigger fingers and trigger discipline, things like that. Went viral. I think it did pretty well, which is exactly what we wanted. Unfortunately, for all the wrong reasons.
It was just a bunch of people thinking that Mattias was a film bro for noticing Joel's excellent gun discipline.
Yeah, I got called a film bro, so I think we've made it, Shannon.
Yeah.
I think I finally made it.
Yeah.
This is purely for my sake. Maybe we'll cut this out. Maybe I'll actually release it. I don't know. Basically, I just want to clarify. People thought I was pretentious because I said I would notice something that maybe not everyone else will. The reason being because, as you know, Shannon, I was in the military. I'm a veteran, and I'm also an expert rifleman. So I know about guns and I know about military. And you'd be maybe surprised, maybe not. I said maybe.
I heard it.
That when a veteran watches anything involving the military or guns, they notice things that are wrong all the time. Things are not accurate, usually in films involving the military. It's usually highly inaccurate. And most of the time, civilians, civvies, don't notice these things.
Nope.
So when I do notice something, it's assumed it's because of my training. And because of the fact it has nothing to do with me being a film bro. That said, I did notice it and no one else did. So screw y'all.
So goodbye.
And from now on, every time I point out something, I'm going to make sure to clarify that only I noticed everything, because let's be reasonable. No one actually watches these things the way that I watch it.
Yeah, because you are #film bro.
Yes. And now everyone knows.
Yeah, all right.
Great.
I'm glad we cleared the air there.
So let's talk about The Last of Us.
Yeah, let's dive in.
And any thoughts about this episode? Just overall general thoughts, before we kind of get into like the nitty gritty?
Just every week it's always going to be the same with me. I'm so in love with these characters in this story already that every week I'm just like happy to be here. You know what I mean? Just happy to be back in the world, and then I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for the next episode to come out.
How do you feel about getting it in these chunks, like having to wait a week after week? Is that like... Yeah?
Yeah. I hate it. I hate it because I want to sit down and I want to watch it all at once, but I also like it because it gives me time to sit and really digest each piece, instead of, I feel that if I was just watching maybe 10 hours all in one sitting, which I can and will do, you kind of gloss over maybe some of the smaller things that are more impactful for me episode to episode, because I only have 60 minutes of like fun time with these characters instead of like a huge portion of time.
Yeah, this is a weird thing for me because not only are we watching it like week to week, me and you are also watching every episode twice. So I think by the time like this thing ends, this is one of those things where I don't think I'm just going to like return to, at least maybe until next season, when season 2 comes out, maybe we'll binge through all of it. And then, but because we've already watched for all of them twice, is it going to move slower, or is it going to move about the same? Like how we feel about it when we're watching it all at once. I'm curious about that because like week to week, it's kind of fine. We watch each episode twice. We kind of analyze them. We get our thoughts on them and stuff like that. Looking back on it, I'm curious how the story is going to be as a whole, all these starts and stops, things like that.
Yeah.
That's just a medium of television, but I've kind of been curious about that. I kind of don't like it. I kind of do like it. I think this is how TV should be done, to be fair. The Last of Us, it's kind of weird. And that's the difference between a game medium and a show medium. Craig Mazin talks about this in the after the episode about how TV has starts and stops. Video games do not. Video games have to, like, they keep you engaged throughout and you keep going from one thing to another. Movies do that the same way. Mad Max Fury Road does that very well, you know, like it's just moment after moment after moment. And video games very much like try and capitalize on that. Yeah. You might have a few places where it's a good stopping point. We used to have save points, you know, things like that. You don't do that. Now everything auto saves and it's really interesting. So the story normally we take in much larger chunks. These smaller chunks, little bit harder because you're like, oh man, we both know where things are going. I want more. And then also like sometimes so much happens in an episode, sometimes not very much happens. Yeah,
like when we were talking earlier, we were both like, oh, episode 2, hope we have a lot to talk about. And then we both took more notes on this episode than we did for the 90-minute premiere episode.
Yeah, but I still think that this one is a smaller thing. That said, I do enjoy that because this is very much Tess's episode. And being able to kind of contain it all, not have to like bounce back and forth. I'm glad for episodes like this and shows like this, as opposed to say like Game of Thrones where we're juggling different perspectives and things like that. If we had been jumping like back and forth, just being able to sit with these 3 characters in a smaller episode. And I say smaller because like we know things are going to get bigger. Right. We know there's a lot more is about to happen and they have a lot to cover before getting through 9 episodes. You know, this is very much kind of like a calm that I think we know that. Other people might not realize that this is very much like a calm before everything else happens, you know.
And you would only know that because you're a film bro.
Okay, yeah, we'll keep bringing that back. So yeah, this is Tess' episode. For those who are new to the podcast, just a reminder, if you haven't already noticed, we will spoil things for this episode. It's going to be a spoiler conversation. We will try not to spoil anything for upcoming episodes. Sorry. We won't spoil anything for anything 3 or beyond. Or anything necessarily from the game. We might use our knowledge from the game, but we're not going to spoil anything that happens in the game or in the show that we think is going to happen until we get to a section where we talk about next week's episode and what we're anticipating. But this week, we are going to spoil this week's episode. Just know that going into it. So if you haven't seen the episode, be forewarned. But also, if you have seen it, thanks for joining us. So yeah, this episode opens in Jakarta. We get another little flashback, I suppose. We'll call it that. And this is very much going into territory where I knew that I was going to want to talk about this, like, question, is this a good zombie show or film or whatever? And this is very much in the world of, like, what is a zombie show? Jakarta, this is possibly, we don't know, but at least one of probably the first places, this isn't in the game, but possibly the site of, you know, victim 1 or patient 0 or you know, where things happen. This is site 0, as it were. I really liked this opening. At first I wasn't sure that I was gonna like it. At first I was like, okay, we're going back. I don't like this. I love that we never got these behind the scenes kind of things, you know. Again, listening to Craig Mazin talk about this and how we need to restart people, reintroduce people. I also don't think we need it to be in Jakarta or back in 2003 when this is probably taking place. But at the same time, watching it again, I loved how they did it. And for me, zombie films, they always kind of do this thing, right? We kind of see what happens in some zombie films where they're going to like show these kinds of things, like where did the first patients come from? What were the first reactions? Things like that, you know? I find it very interesting that in this case, well, most of the time when they do this, they always show people like making mistakes, right? Because we already know what happens. We already know the
Right.
world's gone to shit at this point. We already know we're in a zombie film. We already know how the world is going to end up, and that they're not going to be able to stop this, right? And so I feel like the bad way to start a zombie show or to showcase this origin is to show all the moments where we as an audience or even people onlooking anything would see something and be like, you're making mistake after mistake after mistake. You know, you notice like, no, why did they do that? You know, and you're asking yourself like, like, why would you don't act that way? They only act a certain way in order to propel the plot forward, because you have to get to the point where people made so many mistakes and now there's a zombie apocalypse and people are dead and things like that.
But that's the good thing about this, especially like how they set us up in the first episode by saying there's no cure. There is no way to like squelch it once it's become what it is. And I really like that, again, that's hammered home in this episode of there is no cure, there is no vaccine. There's nothing to be done. What was maybe to be done was global warming, that now this thing has adapted to live in like warmer and warmer climates. So perhaps that's where like we as a whole made our mistake. But yeah, it's not just like stupid people making stupid things. So we have zombies.
Well, that's the thing. It's like no one, in my opinion, in this opening makes any of those types of blunders.
Right.
You know, no one did something where it's like, what you did right there, that's what screwed us. You know, she asks all the right questions. You know, she has a little skepticism at first, which always happens. There's always like someone that's skeptical about it, like, no, that wouldn't happen. And then because of that, someone saying like, no, that wouldn't happen. Like, that's usually the blunder. That's where usually like things go wrong, because we didn't give it enough attention. She gives it the attention
Immediately.
when she's skeptical, but then someone explains it and she looks at it and she's like, okay, something's wrong here. When she goes and like observes the body, you know, she doesn't go in, she looks at everything, she takes it scientifically, and she like puts all the pieces together for her, and she knows how things like got to this point, you know, and you see her reactions to these things, and you know that she's taking this seriously, and she doesn't look at it and say, look at these tentacles or whatever, and be like, this isn't possible, or how could, you know, or whatever, you know, things like that. She immediately knows what's up, right? And I love that, you know, we're just getting a smart person. I do find it funny. This is a separate note or something. It's always like a professor at a university.
Yeah,
that's
they have
doing
to show
these
you they're
things.
smart. How else will we know they're smart, Mattias?
What is it with writers? But it couldn't be someone like in the field already.
Some
like,
rando?
It's always some. It's not just some professional. It's always someone that's a university professor.
The smartest motherfucker you can find.
But why are why are the university professors the smartest? Not the one that's like actually like in the field or
because
something.
you've had years of experience being in the field, and now you're
And
passing
you're no
on your
longer doing
knowledge
it.
to the younger generation.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
She's
why.
probably close to tenure in retirement, and you're pulling her back in. I don't know. It's always writers have a fascination with.
Well, that's such a
professors,
quick
I
way
guess.
to give the character merit. If you just pulled someone out of an archaeological like dig, right? It's like what gives this person merit? If someone's a teacher at the top university in the country, then you assume as a viewer that they would have like the knowledge and the couth to you can trust their word when they say shit's fucked.
I think that's just writers justifying their big student loans.
But it works.
You know,
I buy into
the
it.
professors were smart, and they justified my student loans because they were. Jurassic Park didn't need a professor of anything. They got the people that were working, the ones that were in the field. You know, there are people. What about the people they taught? Are there no one smarter? I'm just saying, it's always a professor at a university.
So in Jakarta, fun fact: largest flour mill in the entire world, located in Jakarta. So
great. I have
fact.
a feeling you're going into the theory territory of like what is going on.
Maybe a little
Go
bit.
ahead.
So I just liked that in the first episode we get that quick radio clip of them talking about panic and mania outbreak in Jakarta. And then in the second episode, we open with probably what
I don't
that was.
remember. Were they talking about explosions or panic or?
Panic.
Okay.
Yeah. And perhaps explosions because, as we know, our really smart professor tells them to bomb the fucking city.
Right.
So it might have been explosions, but I know it was like widespread fear and panic. And I just kind of like that tied together. I also didn't mind that it was a little bit different from the game theory, which was like crops in South America is how the like fungus originally mutated. And I don't mind that this is a shift into, again, like probably the biggest flour mill in the world. Of course, they're going to have a lot of exports. So I thought it was a fun little tie into the first episode and still close enough to like the original game theory that.
So again, you're referring to the theory that the pandemic, this virus spread through bread products and flour.
Through flour, yes.
Yes, that's the prevailing theory online. That's fine. Maybe it's been confirmed. That's why people know about it.
Yeah.
Things like that. I really don't care.
That's okay.
Well,
I like it. Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann confirmed it.
I'm not saying like for me, this kind of information, like theorizing or whatever, is like, I guess if it makes sense for people and they're like, okay, here's the thing. Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann, they went into this trying to think of every little thing. Mm-hmm. This is what I like about zombie shows. I wanted to do my own zombie movie or show. And I was thinking about how to differentiate things. And even before I had played The Last of Us, I'd also based a similar thought process on the cordyceps. Mm-hmm. Now that I've played The Last of Us and years later, it would be very similar.
Sure.
But like the fact is like they went in and they thought about how would this happen realistically. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important is that they've done the research and they've showed it. And like, in that sense is like, you don't need to tell me everything in terms of not you, but they don't have to tell me everything because like, if all that research is done, I get it, you know? Mm-hmm. And, but going back to this moment and what you mentioned earlier, I love that scene where she's trying to figure, she already knows what's going on. She's seen what's happening. She knows in her own way what would happen if this fungus is infecting humans. How did it happen? What was the scenario? Things like that. She gets to a point, she's trying to already weigh, we don't know this, she's already trying to weigh what the options are going to be for containing this, you know? And there's a moment where she asks, how many more people are missing? And he says 14. And if you look closely, something that I noticed, no one else would notice this.
If you say teacup, I'm going to fight you.
Her hands start shaking at that
Oh
moment.
my God, what?
A beautiful performance. This lady deserves whatever. She's amazing. Like
apparently she's a huge actor in Indonesia.
That's great. They found the best person. I want to see her in more stuff.
I bet she was a professor of acting.
But she did really, really good with this moment that like just she told everything with just her body. We've talked about the physicality of people before. She told everything that's going on, and you notice at that moment, like, she's scared. And she already knows. Mm-hmm. She already knows what's happening. She already knows what's going to happen. And unfortunately, she knows that we're screwed. Because he goes on to say, like, okay, but, like, this is what we need you for. This is why we brought you here. We need a vaccine. We need medicine. We already know medicine can't be made. But she, again, clarifies for this person that doesn't know, there is no vaccine. Mm-hmm. And she says, and she had already known what was going to happen. She says to bomb everything. Bomb the entire city and everyone in it. She's already gone through every single scenario, knowing what's going to happen and that this is uncontainable. It's probably already not contained. This is last ditch effort. Mm-hmm. This is maybe we have a chance if we do the unthinkable. And that is scary. That is scary, you know? And the way that she delivers it, so beautiful. This is why I like this opening, you know? There is no, well, maybe if we do this, maybe if we do that. There is no, again, people plundering around doing things. She says, no, this is what we have to do. Whether or not they actually do that, I don't know. But you go to the smartest person, you ask them their opinion, and they're saying this is it. And we know that there were bombings. We know that eventually people think things started happening, but this outbreak's already happened, and she knows. You know everything you need to know about what the reactions were, the initial reactions were, just from her performance. And we're already out of time. Loved it.
Well, yeah, I guess then just jumping into Joel, Tess, and Ellie territory. I really like that the first thing Ellie does when she opens her eyes is check her pocket for her knife.
You think that's what she was doing? I didn't notice that. Why do you think? Why is that significant?
As y'all know, well, just because like that knife is so crucial to her character, both in the game, so I'm assuming then in the TV show. But I noticed that she checked her pockets when we watched it the first time. And then I was like, oh, she pulls her knife out of somewhere when she's talking to Joel later in the episode. So on our second watch, I made sure to check which pocket she checks in the opening and then where she pulls the knife from when she's talking to Joel, and it's the same pocket. So the first thing she does when she wakes up is check her fucking pocket for her knife, and I think that's just a cute little like Ellie thing. Yeah,
this opening is great. We obviously know was conveying they've been up seeing if she's going to turn, you know. I think importantly we know like how we're seeing also the differences between how Tess is starting to react to this and how Joel's starting to react to this. The only thing I really made note of is he's pretty steady throughout, and then she goes to the bathroom, his hand is shaking. We know he heard it yesterday, but he indicating to me he's afraid to show any sort of like weakness in front of Ellie.
Yeah,
he's trying to like stay like stoic and strong or whatever, right?
Yeah, I actually have about the bathroom. There's not going to be anything bad in there, like just you. And she goes, "Oh, funny." I feel like he just can't help but engage with her, even when he is putting those walls up actively. Because, like we talked about in the last episode, the way that Ellie shows fear and seeks reassurance is that more guarded, protective. You know, there probably is a little part of her that's like, what the fuck? Am I going to find anything in here? And what's going to happen if I do? And that's Joel's way of saying, like, you don't have to worry about it. But instead of just saying, am I going to be okay if I go in here? Of course you are. It's, am I going to find something bad? No, just you. Like, I just kind of like that little exchange. Yeah,
it's a fun moment. It also just shows like how, you know, Ellie's always kind of like picking up on things and stuff like that, and kind of like joking around, you know. And Joel's got a little bit of humor in him, you know. But then like him and Tess have a conversation, and I noticed like his thing, he wants to bring her back, right? He's like, we don't want to do this. We should bring her back to the QZ. And she's like, they'll be shot there. She'll be shot there, you know. And I can just feel what Joel's going through is like he's trying to tell Tess, like, do not get attached to this person. She's going to turn, you know. Eventually, if this happens, like, it's gonna be a problem. He's telling himself, like, do not get attached. Like, just don't do it. He's trying to convince himself that like this is not someone to like be. He wants the job over as soon as possible. Right. Now, I wrote this down. This is gonna be a very, I guess, film bro moment, but we are clearly in the refuse the call territory of the hero's journey kind of thing, right? He's refusing the call every step of the way. That's what this whole episode is kind of about, is him just trying to say, like, I like do not want to move forward. This is not for me. I'm not part of this. I don't want to be a part of it. I want to go back and just be who I am, you know? That's just what I'm getting from like this moment, you know, and it's become very clear. Is any other thoughts for you in terms of that? A lot of thoughts that would pivot off of your comment, but I would like to save them
for the end, so I
Sure.
can loop more info in.
So we get a little bit, they start walking into the city. We get a little bit of exposition about, you know, how the zombies work, things like that. Kind of like a little bit of like questions going towards Ellie about like who she is, like how she got bitten, that kind of thing. And is anyone coming for her kind of stuff. A fun little like nod to the game, like, oh, there's no, you know, big infected out there that can explode and get spores on you, because that happens in the game, you know, and will not happen here supposedly, but that happens in the game. So yeah, and it's usually very, very scary. So fun little moments. I don't have much here.
I have a little bit.
Except for like, I think we noticed Tess opening up more here. Like she's actively engaging with this person.
That's what I have written.
Yeah, Joel is hanging back. You know, he doesn't want to get attached to this thing. You know, he doesn't want to get attached to Hope. He doesn't want to get attached to a person. You know, so he's definitely like hanging back. I mean, it's very clear, you know, what's going on here. But I do love that Tess is showing a different side of herself while she's doing this, and she's trying to engage with a person and to learn about her and to like, form some sort of like relationship with her and bond. Then we go to the hotel, a fun little scene that happens in the game as well, with her doing the excuse me, sir, I'd like the finest suite that you have kind of thing. I love that this little jump scare with a skeleton, like you get the music, like the musical sting of a jump scare, but it's her playing it and not actually like from the music, you know, because she falls backwards on the piano. So that's a fun little moment. That's in the lobby. We get to them, Joel and her eventually having to be stuck alone, you know?
Well, in the lobby, I have, when he reaches out to help her up and then immediately pulls away from her, I feel that on the first watch, I was like, yeah, he extended his hurt hand to her and he pulls back because, you know, the weight of that. Yeah. But obviously there's like a lot more to that. It's not just, ow, my hand hurts. It's also like, ow, my heart hurts. He's like a soft little baby. He like I said earlier, it's like impossible for him not to engage with her, even though he's so adamant about keeping his distance. Like he's just constantly there and like in tune with her and with what she needs. But as soon as he feels himself kind of sliding into that territory, he disengages immediately.
I think it was her disengaging more so than him, honestly. Like I think like there is like, as you said, is also true. Like he can't help but like engage or do whatever, but he does what he would normally do, which is to help someone up. And we're seeing more and more, and especially as we go into the next scene, Ellie doesn't want to engage with Joel.
No.
And she doesn't want his help. Because as we mentioned earlier, like he would rather her like, I guess, get shot,
yeah,
you know, and be done with her. So she doesn't want to engage with him, you know, and I kind of love that we get these like little moments. This kind of thing didn't happen so much in the game, you know, because we are Joel most of the time. We like are immediately ingratiated to Ellie, you know, and Ellie's like maybe a little bit annoying because we have to escort her everywhere, but we never see like we never really get the perspective of like how Ellie feels about Joel. And in the show here, we're seeing so much that like Ellie in this moment is just not fucking around with him.
Yeah.
You know,
like when she offers to crawl through that opening, I think there's a little part of her that like maybe wants to keep that like the high impression that Tess has of her. Like earlier when she's like, oh, you got balls, sister. It's like, it's a little bit of that, but it's also like, fuck, if Tess goes through there, that means I'm left alone. with this man who will gladly just like ship me back.
Yeah. As you said earlier, when they're kind of like on the bridge, she says that she was in the mall alone, and Tess finds that very, very impressive, right? And that's interesting. So I do think that you're right there. Like when she's trying to like, go into the opening to like forge ahead and help them out, she's specifically trying to help out Tess. She's specifically trying to impress Tess. I think you're absolutely right there, and that's amazing. Ellie feels like she's on this journey with Tess. Like, fuck this guy. Like, but Tess is amazing. She wants to be like Tess, probably.
Yeah.
She wants, I think that's I think you're absolutely right there. But then like Tess leaves them alone, and now they're like forced to kind of engage. The way Joel engages with her, again, very, very different from the way that Tess was engaging with her earlier. Not very open. He makes some comments to try and like start a conversation, and then it's Ellie that has to like, okay, I'll ask you like,
where you from? Well, see, so that's another thing. I love that. Number one, the first thing she does when she's left alone is get her knife out. This girl and her little knife. Again, we know Joel is not in a place to be openly vulnerable. We know Ellie is also not in a place to show vulnerability to Joel. But the fact that they both know and have this understanding, so Joel extends the first and it's denied. And then Ellie realizes that and makes the choice to re-engage. So I feel like this entire little moment between them is just a game of like engaging and disengaging. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but Ellie asks almost out of necessity and then does kind of start to get curious, and that's when Joel shuts down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think there's a part of Joel that saw the knife and was like, okay, maybe that's kind of cool. Like, what are you doing over there, kid? And she's like, fuck you, don't talk to me. And he's like, fine. You know what I mean? Like, even just the tiniest crumb, the modicum of vulnerability, both of them just shut it down at every point and then have to make the conscious choice and effort to re-engage again.
Yeah. I wrote down that I noticed that he's still afraid, not just of her like being infected and having to turn. I think he's afraid that she's going to turn and that he's going to have to shoot her. So again, that fear of like, don't get attached, that fear of like not wanting to have to do the thing that he doesn't want to do, you can see like he's kind of relaxed here, but he's also still, I feel like there's that he put some distance between him and Ellie, and to me it's because like he knows what's gonna happen. He knows in his head, he's seen this like a million times, like he thinks this is like a stupid, like a fool's errand. If anything, I think his little engagement is kind of like what you would do to kind of ease a person on death row. It's like, you're going to your death. Like I'm going to like make you comfortable, treat you like a little bit like a human, but again, he doesn't want to get too close or get too personal because it doesn't matter to him.
I think if we look at the absolute onion that is Joel, I think there is the tiniest part of him that he has locked away that is hope and warmth.
Sure.
And the reason I do believe that is because otherwise he would not be involved at all. Your relationship, romantic, platonic, or otherwise, with Tess, I don't think is enough of a motivator for him to like deal with this kid. I think that his bond with Tess, paired with that tiny bit of hope that he's afraid to feel but is still in there, I think work together. So I think that his fear has so many layers because he's afraid that she's going to turn, because he's afraid that she can hurt them and that he's going to have to put her down. He's afraid that she's going to turn, which is going to kill that tiny bit of hope that he pretended that he didn't have. Like, there are just so many layers to why engaging with Ellie is dangerous to his emotional state. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's, Pedro does an amazing job, like, feeling all of those layers and then just expressing, like, hey, kid, cool knife.
Yeah.
You know?
Or maybe we're just projecting. I don't know.
I don't care.
Let's take a small break here from the narrative, and because this is a point where they run into some zombies. I want to ask you the question about the change from spores to like a fungus, and how you feel about that.
I don't mind it.
You don't mind it?
No, I thought that, you know, spores are super fun in the video game because they're spooky. You walk into a room and you're like, oh shit, now I have this gas mask on. It changes things in the video game.
Yeah.
But I think for the show, like, fungus is such a cool idea. You get so many cool visuals to work with when it's a fungus too. And I love all the obviously interconnectedness. I like that they made the underground network that connects more of the infected together, which explains why you would have hordes chasing you if they're, you know, you're in an area that you think is safe and then all of a sudden there's 50 zombies around you. It's like, well, that's why. It's because they're all connected. Yeah, I don't know. I think it was a cool choice, and I liked how the infected that were lying in that big like roadway with that sunbeam passing over, and the way like they recoiled from the sunlight and then would go back to like slithering around together. You have so much fun to play with.
I think it's a decent change, and again, it just shows like how they like really, really wanted to kind of ground everything here and make it make sense for them or for the world and things like that. That said, I will take both sides here, and I do think that like I take a little bit of offense for Craig Mazin to say afterwards that spores may work in the video game, but in real life they don't work. And I'm like, well, we would have accepted it. Like the video game is not, again, people saying like video game isn't real, but once you like make an adaptation of something, it becomes real, you know, and now you have to think about how things will be done. Whereas like it made just as much sense to me in the game, you know?
Yeah, you can accept it as your reality, but they put so much effort into covering any holes that someone might try to pick apart. How is this possible? Why is this going on? If you're going to put all that work, the preliminary work in the 2003s to set up why things are the way they are 20 years later, I feel like this is just another way of them being like, here's the reason why it makes sense. It's rooted in science. You can go Google it. Film bros, don't at me. You know what I mean? Whereas spores, yeah, absolutely. They're cool as hell. They're a little spooky in the video game. And I'm sure, you know, we watch media all the time that we just accept what's being shown to us as reality so we can enjoy the story. But they just put so much authenticity and intention behind how the cordyceps fungus comes to be what it is that I think that's just their way of just tightening the screw. Yeah, I don't mind the change. I think we would have accepted it. I think we could have done spores. It's not to say that I mind the change. I think it's fine, you know, and I think it's working out really well. And as we see at the end of the episode, it comes obviously like full circle, and it does make it very, very scary. But first we got to get through the museum. Very top of it, flashlights. They're introducing flashlights, and I just have to mention, if they're going to introduce these flashlights and them having to pull them out and be like, you have a flashlight, right? I guarantee these flashlights are going to run out of battery. You better shake that shit.
There's going to be a scene.
You better shake that shit.
Oh, and if they don't shake it, I'm going to be mad. But I guarantee that a flashlight is going to stop working at some point for one scene, because otherwise you don't do this. Again, moment from the game is because the flashlight is a thing that you need to use a lot, and you have to shake it when it's running out of batteries. You have to actually shake the controller. So I want to see that, you know?
Now, just a little fun fact. I played on hella easy for the first game.
Sure.
And I don't think I ever had to shake my flashlight.
Oh, so the flashlight changes based on...
I remember you had to shake your flashlight because it scared the shit out of me. We would be in a dark stairwell and the flashlight would go off. And I'd be like, shake that shit, Mattias, shake it. Yeah. But for me, I don't think I ever had to shake my flashlight.
You can see Joel is... At this point, like he keeps having like no choice. There was always a moment to turn back and to turn back. And now they're like, okay, we're going to go through the museum. He's like, he's like, fine. And now he's like forges ahead because he wants to get this job over sooner than later is what I get. I love his differentiating between quiet and silent.
Me too.
Maybe it's just me. Like it's that toughness of him being like, listen to me when I say something.
I loved it, and I love the way his voice sounded too when he said it.
Yeah. From now on, that's the phrase I'm going to use whenever you refuse to listen to me.
Don't you dare. Don't you dare. Don't you dare.
When I tell you to do something.
Back all the way up with that bullshit. I mean, if you say it as sexy as Pedro Pascal did, I guess maybe I could accept it sometimes, but he said silent. I said, yes, sir.
I already know where we're going with this. We get introduced to clickers, some of the best zombies in this game. What makes this a good zombie show, if anything, because again, this is not just zombies, they evolve, right? And I know for damn sure that you want to talk about the physicality of the clickers, so please lay it on me, Shannon. What do you think of the clickers in this show, in this adaptation of The Last of Us Part 1, the video game?
These clickers are cool as fuck. So something that disappointed me, and I was talking to Mattias about this earlier, is that I can't find a clear indicator of who the stunt, like motion actors are that portray the clickers specifically, not just the standard infected. But I do know, and Mattias, you might know this already, that the clickers are voiced by the same two people that voiced them in the games.
Yeah, I would probably believe they took the same voice files to just do it because it worked so well.
So yeah, no, they brought Misty Lee and Philip Kovacs back, and they voiced the male and female clickers respectively. So I think that is super cool. I like, it works obviously. I just wish that I could really shout out the stunt actor directly, because you took something that was so creepy and just like fucked up from the game, and you have a person doing it. You have a human being in makeup recreating what we've seen in a video game with so much integrity, and it's like dysfunctional, and it's creaky, and it's so weird, but it's also so fluid. You know what I mean? Like there's a weird grace to the clickers as well as the like twitchy movements, and I just love how much space the clickers take up, how they crouch and they like hunt kind of, and then they're big and they chase you, and they have so much more control than the runners that we saw initially, the one that was just throwing himself over the benches and like can't round corners. It's like this clicker has control. It can't see you, but it has pristine hearing and excellent control over its body, and I think that's what makes them so dangerous, is because they have like just a different level of physical maturity.
Yeah. I find these clickers more scary than in the game for some reason. There's something about with a game it's clearly like very, very similar design, if not the exact same design. But like there's something about seeing it with a camera and seeing like a t-shirt on this person, that like you don't really like register whenever you're playing the game that they're clothed like even though they are, like we know that that's a thing. It's just like here, like it's so much more like noticeable, and it just makes it so like weird and like otherworldly. But also like the prosthetics, they did such a good job on that thing, making it look so grotesque, but also somewhat beautiful. Which is how mushrooms just fucking are.
Weird as fucking gorgeous.
So it makes perfect sense that like this mushroom thing is like otherworldly and grotesque, but also somewhat beautiful in its like thing. And you kind of love that, like these designs that go into these creatures, even the ones that are kind of like the runners that are already changing, like with the things coming off of their head and stuff like that. There's something kind of almost like beautiful about it in the same way that I love when nature takes over kind of thing, right? But also horrifying, because you're like, that was a human. That was a human being. It still looks like a human being. That's like, imagine a clicker coming at you with like a t-shirt of someone you recognized, you know, or so, you know, like that just feels
like a clicker in an Abercrombie t-shirt and like some Nike pants.
Or it's like if it was someone with that with those clothes, you know.
Oh yeah.
If it was my clothes or your clothes, like that, you knew that who that clicker was. Like, imagine that, you know. These are not just like dirty clothes, which is usually like every clicker has in the game. Like I can imagine like that kind of stuff like suddenly puts a personality on this thing, you know. Not to mention, like you said, being just totally rock star. Like, oh, that guy loved Metallica or something. You know?
Like, but honestly, I'm guilty. Like, I forget. Just backtracking a little baby bit when Ellie asks Joel, like, is it hard knowing that they were people once? It's like, I'm so guilty of forgetting that these motherfuckers were human beings. They're us.
Yeah.
We're the people that lost, basically.
Yeah.
And part of it, I think, is because I just get so wrapped up in like Joel and Ellie and then also Tess and everyone else that's with them. But to humanize them like that, and I agree with you, I noticed the same thing. I noticed the clothes that they were wearing. And that is not something in the game. I love the clickers because I just sneak up behind them and I stab them with a knife. In this, it's so much more in your face. Like
I just want to remind people, you played it on easy, and it's so easy to
have you tried just stabbing
sneak
them?
Up on these motherfuckers.
you just sneak up and you stab them, guys. Come on.
I have written down, I love a good like finger to mouth moment.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yes.
He says something that we don't actually hear, but the subtitles say they can't see but they can hear. You know. But you kind of know what he was saying if you didn't have subtitles. You know. But yeah, love that whole thing. Love that moment. Joel is scared. Again, there was a fear before, like a emotional fear. He is physically scared now. Yes. And when Joel is scared, it's not good for anyone, you know? And I love his fear. Like that Pedro can really portray both, as we've mentioned, and like the range of his emotions when he's trying to reload that gun and he's trying to do it as silently as possible, and he's trying to hold that flashlight so it doesn't like accidentally fall or whatever, and the contortion of his face to make sure like everything is, you know, it's just so great. So good. There's a moment where he teams up with Ellie. As I said in the podcast afterward, this is the team up episode. They get there. This is when she is learning also like to trust him, you know, like why he is the way that he is, why he says things that, you know, and kind of like his survival instincts, because she's being chased by, she's never witnessed this before. She never knew these things existed. And he is the only one that can help her. And he does save her, you know, this thing like jumps on them and he not only saves her, he pulls it off of her and onto him, you know, which I think is a big moment that could easily be glossed over or missed, you know. But I loved it. I loved this little moment of you getting a little bit of like what you know it's going to be like, and especially if you've played the game, it's always Joel and Ellie, and you get a little bit of that here. You're making a face.
I'm sad.
Okay then. Just wanted to say that I noticed that. No one else will notice that, but I noticed that.
Right.
Did you notice anything else that you want to about these moments?
So yeah, a little bit. Just sewing into what you said, essentially, the fact that she makes a sound checks with Joel, partially because, you know, he just chastised her for making noises, and she made a noise, and she's like, "Oh shit, don't want to like make Dad upset." But I also think it's just there's other points in like right before we meet the clicker where her eyes are on him. Yeah. So not that Tess defers to Joel in any way necessarily, but even in this circumstance, like Joel takes helm, and I think that Ellie feels that in him and also sees it in Tess and just knows like, okay, if we're in here and this is what's happening, like he's my point man. And I think there's something really beautiful about the fact that we see the clicker like behind that glass pane when he's telling her like they can see but they can't hear, or they can hear but they can't see. And she just shuts her eyes. Just shuts her eyes. I thought that's such a surrender. It's fear, but it's a surrender. To close you, to get rid of one of your senses around someone else is putting trust in that other person in a way.
Yeah.
And I just like that she took that second and she let herself live in that fear. She closed her eyes. And then, you know, obviously after that, all hell breaks loose. But I do just kind of like that as much as she's also resistant to Joel, like she still feels that pull with him too.
Yeah. I want to talk about the moment after they get out of there. Is there anything you want to say before we get to that? Because I would like to.
No, I had mentioned that, you know, Ellie, we find out that Ellie's been bit. And his reaction to that is to throw her something to tie on her arm and shoo her away while he like connects with Tess.
I will say the first time I felt like a shooing. Second time, she just did it herself. You know,
Yeah. Well,
after she gets across, like he says, like, "Hey, just go and just wait for us. Just wait."
I just mean I like that he tells her to bandage her own wound and then helps Tess wrap her ankle, even though Tess is more than capable of wrapping her own ankle. And I would argue that tying something around your arm would be more difficult with one hand.
Yeah.
And he just throws it to her and he's like, fucking handle it because I need to talk to Tess right now.
Yeah,
but I think that also kind of shows that he, like, I think on the surface level, it's, you know, this kid, you got bit again. I don't trust this. Like, bandage that shit up and let me handle something else. But I think it also speaks to a little part of him that's like, you were already bit once and nothing happened. So, like, here's this bandage and I need to talk to Tess about, like, everything that's going on.
Yeah. It's, you know, priorities. It's like whether it's like, it's a little bit of a scratch versus a twisted ankle. They can't move on, you know, kind of things. You're right. I think it mostly was just to get rid of her so he could figure this out, because he's like, we can still get out of this. Like, what happens if the first one didn't take, you know, what? And him and Tess fight about it. He still doesn't want to go.
No.
They've pretty much made it. He's still trying to find a way to get out of this. And Tess blows up at him. I mean, we know why. We know that she's bitten at this point, you know. And she's been finding hope little by little this entire time, and she's kind of fed up with him, you know. She's fed up with his kind of like attitude with things. There's something that she's probably dealt with for years, not 20 years. I don't know how long they've known each other, but for years, you know. And before she put up with it, you know, but they've never had this. They've never had in front of them a person that was immune, you know. So yeah, he kind of like resigns himself. He goes over there. He says, like, is this everything you hoped for? She says, you know, not really, but you can't deny the view. We love this moment, mostly because of a video game thing. I just love that for a second, Joel forgets. Like, he forgets me, whether he chooses to or whether it was like a decision. Like, he's mostly just waiting for Tess to catch up, you know. So again, he's engaging like he normally would. And I think, like, he answers her, and this is the same way in the game. Like, I don't think he expects her to answer that way. Maybe he expected another snarky comment, and she gives him a point of view that he wasn't totally ready for, and then he forgets. He looks at his watch afterwards.
Yeah, I have that written too.
And it's clearly there. It's clearly there to show us that, like, we know what he's thinking about. I think he forgets who he is and who he's become, like, at this point. You know, he's realizing that Ellie is like a human being, you know, and she's a child, you know, she's a person with her own opinions, things like that. He's forgetting, and then he's like also remembering, when he looks at that watch, he's remembering what this is going to cost him if he allows her to be that human being to him. You know, it's still a reluctance, you know, and he forgets that he was like not wanting to engage with her. He forgets that he wasn't wanting to treat her to get attached, and he did get attached momentarily.
In a moment.
There's
Yeah.
something, yeah. And such a beautiful, again, moment that I think I didn't get that from the game, from that scene originally.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just something about, like, again, seeing these performances in real life. This is why I love this show. I love going back and analyzing these things. I love rewatching it and to see what, things that I can get from it that I didn't get from it before, and how I can read something into it that I wasn't expecting, things like that.
Yeah. I want to build upon that. Can I start sewing into the next section a little bit?
Sure.
With Tess?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Joel kind of realizing what he is and what he isn't. Or more what he was and what he's afraid of maybe being again. And there's no way you don't have this written in your notes, but I'm gonna start.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the way that Tess argues, that's not my home.
It's not my fucking home. Yeah.
That's not my home. Bothered me both times that bothered is maybe not the right, affected me both times that I watched it, because we spend this whole episode actually learning who Tess is. Not the bad bitch we met in the first episode that's just here to get her shit done and keep things situated. We see maybe a little piece of who Tess was before the pandemic, and the hope and the love and the belief in others that she holds in her. And that just hurt me, that Joel's we'll go back, we'll go home, because in Joel's reality, this is his new reality. It's the safe space that he built for himself. He put the little piece of hope that he had in a very tight box, and he tucked that shit away, and he made a new reality for himself. And it's where he feels safe operating. And I feel that Tess has just kind of been playing in that because there hasn't been anything better to come along and entice her. And you get this tiny little taste of something bigger than you, and Tess immediately dives into it. And I just thought that was so beautiful. Her, just the way she put all that weight onto that's not my home, just wrecked me. And, she just continues I never asked you for anything. And again, just kind of gives you a quick look into Joel is a certain way. We know he's a certain way. And now we see that even though Tess has been acting a certain way, it's been hiding a much more rich internal world too than she felt she was allowed to share. Because again, Joel's not in the right space to give or receive in that area. And I just think this was such a cool way to explore vulnerability in both of them, because I think it's really her showing that makes him activate.
Yeah, I think that you're everything there. Yeah, this is Anna Torv is just putting in such a performance. She's doing exactly what I would have hoped she would do with Tess, which is to give us someone to hold on to and to remember, because we knew she was going to die this episode. Mm-hmm. We talked about it last week, and the Tess that we get in the game, you forget about. Mm-hmm.
I forgot Tess got bitten. You reminded me. You said it when we watched the episode. I had completely forgotten. Yeah,
and this is she's giving the performance of a lifetime. Mm-hmm. That everything is good that we know about Joel and the relationship, everything that comes before, and how he treats people, all this kind of stuff. We will not forget Tess after this. Mm-hmm. And what I wrote down was, you said she said, I never asked anything of you, not to feel the way I felt. That was the line that got me. That, because in that moment, I'm imagining when they first met, I'm imagining how she tried to get close to him, how he never gave anything, why they've stuck together for so long is because she has feelings for him. She loves him, and he has never returned that in this entire time. and maybe she thought there would be a time where they could talk about it. Maybe that, you know, it's over now, you know? And she's using her last moments to tell him, to take this girl, find some hope, open yourself up for once, you know, if not for me, for Ellie.
I'm gonna cry.
You know, that's what got me there. I also have written down, she says, save what you can save.
Save who you can save.
I think, to me, that's something that's like, it's very much, you know, can be an of the moment thing. For some reason, I read into that this is something that this is their motto. This is how they go through life. This is how they've survived for so long. Over and over and over again, they save who they can save, which is usually each other, right? They do not save who cannot be saved. They do not give it a second thought. When they see someone that's like gone, they're gone for them. This is how they go through life, how they've done their jobs, how they've done the smuggling for years. They save what they can save. When she says this here, I don't think it's the first time she said it to them. I don't think it's the first time he's heard it. I think he said it to her before. I think he's even had to like say that when she was like wanting to, you know, save someone or do whatever, you know, and he has to like remind her, like, save who you can save. And this is her putting it back on him. And I have no idea why I got that, but that's how I felt about that moment. I think mostly because he that's the kind of thing, like, it's a weird thing when you have like a safe word, you know, or when you have something that like we say to someone like over and over again, and it's like shut up, you heard me. Like when you use someone's full name or whatever, like you suddenly like, you're like, oh, that's what, like, you know exactly what they mean, you know how to, and you don't talk back anymore. He doesn't say another fucking word. He just grabs Ellie and he goes, because they know what that phrase means to the both of them. And it's heartbreaking. It's so heartbreaking because he knows what she means there, and he knows that she's gone, and he knows that he's never going to see her again. And this is also her like letting him off the leash too, you know? Yeah. And I think she's also afraid of what that's going to do. This entire time she's afraid of like who Joel is going to be and who he's going to become, and he's reminding him, this is a person that you can save. You know, you can read it into being like, save who you can save as in the entire world. If you save Ellie, I don't think it's about that.
I don't either.
You know?
Yeah.
And again, just a beautiful way that it's portrayed. The fact that I could read all that into this one line that I never, you know, it's all done from performances, all done from the actors. I love Anna Torv. Yeah. I'm so glad of what she brought to Tess, and like, I'm going to miss her. I'm going to miss her so much. Yeah. You know?
Fuck. I also think, I'm not sure. So let me ask, I don't want to misspeak. Do you think the love was one-sided?
Yeah. I mean, I think that if he did love her, he never admitted to it, because we've seen throughout this entire episode, he doesn't get attached. I think he got attached more. There's something about Tess for him. You know, obviously we talked about how she's the one that controls him. She keeps him on the leash. She's the one that's like in charge of their relationship, you know, and how they do business and stuff like that. He sees a kinship in her that he couldn't have gotten anywhere else. He has a brother. His brother's gone, you know. He hasn't seen, he's going after his brother, but like, it's always with Tess. I think he always figured that she was going to be around, you know? So in the sense that like he didn't get attached in the way that like she wanted, but I think he also took that for kind of granted that she was going to be there. Yeah. You know? And I think that if he has feelings, he just never like openly admitted to them, and he's not willing to. But like, this is the Joel that we're this is the thing that we're setting up for Joel.
Yeah.
Of like who he was and how he will change.
Yeah.
I
don't think that he had like a whirlwind romance sort of love for Tess, because I don't think, again, that he is capable of being in that emotional state where he is. But I do think that there is a love and a respect in him for Tess. I don't think it manifested in the way that Tess wanted it to. I can also see her meeting Joel, because again, we can already see Tess is so willing to jump onto hope. So she meets Joel, she feels that feeling. Tess would be someone willing to lean into that and find like a light in the darkness, not to circle back to the catchphrase from the first episode, but and Joel is always just keeping people at arm's length. So Tess got close to him and built a relationship in a way that made Joel feel safe. He could build this like working relationship where they kind of looks like they live together. They work together. They protect each other. They trust each other. They communicate well. They can communicate without words. And that is all that Joel was capable of in his like hardened state. And I think it's really cool is such a weak word, but it's really cool of Tess to recognize that in Joel and kind of respect those boundaries, because also her love and appreciation for who Joel is outshines her desire for like, honestly, like the romance and the light that she wanted in her life. So I think that there's definitely a love there. It's just how it manifests, I suppose.
Yeah. We end this episode. I just want to go through it because like I feel it so much. Like when they leave, she does what she does. He turns back. He's still in this like fight mode, because he's in survival mode kind of thing. When you realize nothing's coming after them, that she did what she did, that she's gone. You sense the tension in his fingers, in his face. He's angry. He looks at Ellie and he just walks away. He is so mad at everything. He's mad at Ellie. He's mad at Tess. He's mad at where he's at. He's mad that he got attached to someone. He's mad like everything is like coming, that one look that he gives Ellie. And you kind of feel almost fearful now because like what is going on with him, and you realize without Tess, Ellie may not be in a good place. Like she's almost in trouble, because he's not happy, and not happy with her,
Ellie too. If we backtrack just a little bit, where he does that hard pivot, he grabs her and just hauls ass. And you can see Bella Ramsey like digging her feet in, like trying to find purchase to push back because she doesn't want to go with him. She doesn't want him to leave Tess. And for as powerful as Joel's look to Ellie is before he stomps off, Ellie's look to Joel before that even happens is a really interesting beat too, because she looks at him with an amount of like a little bit aghast and a little bit of hatred and a little bit of fear that all of this happened and it's your fault because I trusted you to get us out of here, and now the person that was nicest to me is dead. And then Joel has his moment of anger covering all of his soft feelings and just walks away. And I think that's also a really cool indicator of the fact that they are so much alike. They're just coming at it from two different ends, but they're so similar in the way that their big feelings manifest in this like this anger and this snark and these walls. And love is gonna break that shit down.
Speaking of love, that's the end of the episode. Let's talk about the kiss.
Okay, I was just going to say, okay, wait, let me open
Speaking
this.
of amazing, romantic, whirlwind romance.
A little smoochy smooch. So, Mattias, I have a fun fact for you that I hope you don't know. I'm going to be very upset if you know it.
I don't know why you would think that I
because
would
you're
know
a film
something.
bro and you know everything.
I don't notice everything. I know how hard that is to believe. Like, you know I notice a whole lot of things that most people don't notice.
Okay, wait, listen. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah.
Tess's lighter.
Oh, I heard about this. No, I saw it.
You heard about
Neil
it.
Druckmann posted. Yeah.
Okay, but you didn't see it. You had to be told that it was there.
I will say
I noticed it. Let me have this.
I didn't notice it.
Yes. I noticed it.
Most everyone will probably notice it but me.
Fuck. Well, let me have this. Okay, so the lighter, I like to look at people play with things. When someone has something in their hands, I'm always like, why is this the shot? The lighter is from Uncharted, A Thief's End.
It's Sam's lighter, right?
Another Naughty Dog. No, it's Nathan Drake's.
Isn't it Sam Drake?
Fuck, I don't know. Maybe. I didn't look it up. I just knew it was that lighter, and I was like...
Because it was a chance for him to make an actual lighter, and I want to say like he made a second one to give to Troy Baker, which played Sam Drake. Yeah.
Okay, well, I noticed
that was in the tweet. That was in the tweet.
I didn't see the tweet, but I noticed it.
I didn't notice that until afterwards. But I'm pretty sure it's Sam's, because Sam's the one that smokes.
Okay, that's fine.
You know? It's been a while since I played Uncharted, so I could be wrong. But yeah, I want to say it's
okay.
that.
Well, that's fine.
But yeah, good catch. Good
Thanks.
catch. Do you want to talk about the kiss?
I do.
And how you felt about it?
I do. I'm going to start with, I read an article.
As a woman, did this make your heart palpitate?
As a woman, stop it. No. So, we listened to the podcast immediately after watching the episode. So I don't want to pull too much information from that. The first thing I noticed was I loved that we see the one infected stop and turn, and then all the other uninfected stop running. Mm-hmm. I really liked that energy. I did not want those tentacles to go anywhere near any mouths, just
orifice,
because of who I am as a person. Yeah. I don't like that. But I was reading an article, and Craig Mazin just asked, like, why are infected people violent? And if the point is to spread the fungus, the reason they get violent is because we are violent. Mm-hmm. And if you are just there and still and able to accept that it doesn't have to be a violent thing. So if you're looking at the dichotomy between violence and kiss, like almost romantic, it's just like the weird dichotomy of the attacking, the clawing, the biting versus like death's kiss, basically.
Interesting. I want to say, like, in the podcast, the way that they talked about it was that, and I didn't catch this. I didn't think about it. I was like, why are they not just like running after it violently or doing whatever? And I didn't think it was because she was like accepting it in a sense, you know? I don't know what I was supposed to infer there, but then they talk about how it's because she's already infected and they sense that. And I was like, oh, that makes sense now why they wouldn't just jump at her or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's like, you're like me, we're coming together. Either way, whether it's you accepting it and like accepting death's kiss kind of thing, or that they're trying to like connect, I don't,
it might be a little bit
to
of
each
both,
other,
honestly.
You know, kind of thing, because
yeah.
they are all connected, you know, and that's the whole point of the fungus thing. Very, very violating in either way.
Yeah, wild, just insane.
And I think it's meant to be a violation of someone's like space and trust, and the way that this can be done in such a non-consensual. I don't know. It was very disturbing. Somewhat beautiful, I think, in the way it's shot, but very, very disturbing. I don't think we're supposed to feel comfortable about it.
No.
I think we're supposed to see that and be like, that is wrong on so many levels, you know?
Because it is. It's violating. It's a complete takeover. Whether it's a violent end or otherwise, it's still an invasion of self.
Would you rather get bitten, or would you rather be kissed to turn? What would you want?
You know, something I might rather be bitten.
Sure.
Because
you'd be fighting or something.
If I'm in Tess's shoes, the fear, the adrenaline has already happened. I already know. I know this is the end. And you almost take Tess to the absolute edge of horror. Like, imagine if the lighter wouldn't have worked, if it wouldn't have dropped. Mm-hmm. How long are you, Tess, active in your brain, can you feel it taking over? How long do you live through that mutation process? Like there's more horror than just being bitten and killed, or like being bitten and turned quickly. So I almost feel that the calmness of like, no one's chasing you, no one's running, no one's fighting. You get this kiss, you feel it like penetrate your mouth. Like you feel it in your, probably like down your throat and into your nostrils. Like just feeling that versus getting bitten, the blood loss, you probably get to black out by the grace of God. Like, I
think she already feels the connection, the fungal connection already, even before it's happening.
I do too.
She knows what's about to happen.
But the human part of her is still so afraid. Like Tess is still there.
Yeah.
I read another article that was like, part of the lighter clicking is not just the fact that she can't get it lit. It's also as that infected comes toward her, she slows down because there is the part of her that's infected, like giving in. It's becoming one with the crew, the mushroom crew.
Yeah.
And there's just that little part of her right at the end. That lighter flicks, you see it in her eyes, and then she shuts them. And it's like, that was that last little piece of Tess that was able to kind of push back. And yeah, that just, imagine that. Like,
I'm just having like flashbacks to like I Am Legend, where like these things turned out to have like communities and personalities, and I don't want that. I really don't, because I don't want to imagine.
Do not humanize. Tess comes back in episode 8. We see her with her little J. Crew top on.
No, I don't think that's going to happen.
Better
but
not.
I just think like just the fact that like it would do it in this way, and it's just a fungus. You know, I don't think it is that. I think whatever it is controlling these limbs like a puppet kind of thing. It's the fungal seeing you. It's not like a human seeing you and like trying to. It's
correct.
This is how the fungus is just working, right? It's just so creepy though. It sends like shiver down my spine, that kind of thing. Yeah, so that's episode 2. Let's talk about episode 3. We're in spoiler territory now. If you thank you for listening. If you came here for our recap of episode 2, glad you came. If you don't want to know about what's going to happen next, leave now,
respectfully.
I am going to be so broken next week just from watching the next week on whatever kind of preview. I'm already like I'm ready to cry.
Mattias was like, I'm gonna get wrecked next week. Literally said those words to me this morning.
This is the hard thing about like, we're talking about a show and people have seen some episodes already. And we keep hearing about episode 3. And I was like, oh, well, okay, it's going to be Bill and Frank. I was like, what could actually like happen? Like we know what happens to Frank. And we know what happens to Bill, you know what I mean? But like we get some time with Bill. We actually never meet Frank in the game.
Remind us what happens to Bill.
Okay, well, first off, like the whole point is for me is that like I'm like, what are people saying? Why is episode 3 going to be so good? I see this preview and I'm like, oh, oh my God.
But
I'm
why?
ready. I'm ready to be hurt. Oh, why? What?
Why do you feel that way?
What I feel like things are so. I mean, I can't really tell for sure. I think we talked about it earlier this afternoon. I do think that the preview is going to be a little bit of like a. What's
Time
the word?
fuck?
Yeah, they're messing with your mind, right? So we're going to see moments before with Bill and Frank. We're probably going to open the episode with Bill and Frank. We're probably going to like bounce back and forth between Bill and Frank and Joel and Ellie, feeling like it's the same day. In reality, these are not two separate. These are like 2 separate timelines, right? We're gonna see when Bill and Frank met, how they got together, how like what their relationship is, how they met Joel, what the relationship is with Joel, and then we're gonna see like what happened the night of the first episode ends with an 80s song, which means trouble, and we clearly see like Bill, as played by Nick Offerman like saying to Frank, call Joel, warn Joel, and then that clearly takes place the same night as the first episode. I'm like, oh, we're gonna get a whole thing to see him on the ground like that, to see him hurt and try. And Bill, when we meet him, normally he's just a crazy old cooker, you know. We don't never know about Frank. Like he keeps talking about his partner Frank, but like you think like it's just like a friendship thing. You learn later on through context clues that they loved each other. You know, Frank committed suicide. He left a long time ago, and when we eventually find where Frank ended up, he had committed suicide a long time ago.
Right.
And Bill didn't know that. You know, he was still mad at Frank the whole time. And like, just like, that is already like hurtful, but you never get any of that like emotional core. Like he was always a warning of what Joel could be, you know, without Ellie, without Tess, you know, without anyone, you know. And now we're gonna get just like actually like show like what that relationship was. And you can already see like I'm so ingratiated to them because Nick Offerman is so charismatic and like you love him. And then like Murray Bartlett from White Lotus, like there's something about seeing him, like he immediately in the preview, he like the way that they have their little interaction, and it's like funny, it's kind of a little meet cute, you know. And like, oh fuck, I love these two kids. I love them already,
Right.
And I don't want to see them. I don't
Suffer.
And I know that's going to happen.
Yeah, this
Something
whole
happens.
thing's about suffering.
This is gonna be a bad. People have already talked about it. How distraught they were from this episode, and I can already feel it. You know,
Gosh,
there's something about just men.
something about men. You know,
falling in love and
men being soft and then suffering for it.
Yeah,
You know. I just this whole universe is about taking characters that you love and just putting them through unreasonable suffering. Unreasonable, you hear me? I wouldn't be surprised if this episode is incredibly painful. Now,
but I think we're going to end with them. I don't know how they're going to change the Bill and Frank thing, like, and how Frank goes or whatever. I'm curious if Bill's going to be the one that dies instead, you know, and just to like give us another like little fake out. I wouldn't be surprised if most of the time, like when we see Joel and Ellie, we get them through some stuff, and then they end up meeting up with Bill and Frank in the aftermath, and one of them's already gone, and that's going to be the end of the episode, you know.
So you think we're going to go a whole episode without Joel and Ellie?
I think we're gonna like get glimpses of them because again, they want you to make it feel like it's the same time frame, and then it'll change. I mean, there's clearly a point where like Joel's there at the compound of Bill and Frank without Ellie, you know, and it's before things. So I don't know if it's gonna be a complete fake out. Maybe they'll just do things linearly. I don't know. But I think they're gonna get in there in the aftermath. They're not gonna be struggling. They're not gonna like fight with Bill and then we're gonna have to get the car, you know. The next episode would be them getting the car and doing so or something. I don't know. This feels things are changing and then things are going to start moving fast.
Yeah, we had a really clear opinion about where, or at least I did. I had a really clear opinion of where I thought episode 2 was going to end, which was with Tess's death.
Yeah.
Episode 3, I guess I'm just trying to decide if it's going to be balls.
I think
what's
they
that
might
Mythic Quest episode where we get to the founders and it's just them?
Yeah, I don't think
mean?
it's that because we do get like glimpses of Ellie in the preview episodes. So I think again they're gonna like give us a little bit of something there. I don't think we'll ever have like a straight standalone thing until we get to Ellie and Riley, where it's Willow territory. Eventually, Ellie and Riley will be its own standalone, I think, episode.
Oh, do you think? Okay.
And I think that's gonna be the only one that. And I think even when we get like what we know is going to be Ellie's mother. I think that's going to be like a before the episode proper starts or something, you know, kind of thing. Like we got today with like Jakarta, you know, and maybe that's what it's going to be next week. We're just going to get a little bit of how Bill and Frank met, you know, and stuff like that. And like when they met Joel, and then we like get the episode that's like more of like, this is the time frame, you know, like more present day. I don't know. But I'm looking for next week's episode. I can already tell that like I'm gonna love it because I love these characters, you know. And yeah, I think maybe it ends. Maybe they're both dead, and then they just get the car from Bill and Frank, and they go.
Right.
Which we know they're gonna go find Tommy. I'm glad we're gonna have a little bit of fleshing out of those things.
I want to spend time with every character.
Oh, for sure. And that's why we love this show and love the way that they're able to do this medium is like they don't have to push us forward. They can just give us something in a contained story and whatever they're trying to say with a Bill and Frank episode is I'm sure going to be amazing and it's going to make me cry. So yeah. That's it. That's the Last of Us episode 2, Infected, and the upcoming stuff. Now we come to the moment we've all been waiting for, the fuck counter. Shannon, we have a new record. I know it's only episode 2, and like we didn't have that much time with Ellie before. We blew past 6 fucks.
Yeah, pretty early in the episode.
Pretty
honestly.
early. We got to 13. I don't know if I don't know if we're gonna beat that. 13's. Do you think we can beat 13?
13's a lot of fucks. I think we might be able to beat 13
If this
fucks.
is a low number for Ellie, I can't wait to see what.
Well, I think it's reasonable that 6 was a low number for Ellie.
Yeah.
I think 13 is like a typical day for Ellie. But I have a feeling that she's got one episode where she's just gonna be motherfucking left and right.
Here's my question. Which one was your favorite fuck?
You can't just spring that on me. I don't remember all 13 fucks, Mattias. In fact, we have a discrepancy in our count because when we both counted the first time, we got 12, and somehow this man came up with 13. So we have a disagreement on one of the fucks. I came up
with 13 twice.
No, he's...
Yeah, came up with 13 twice.
A liar.
Because there was one time I was like, wait, I think I missed a fuck there. Did she just say that? And you said no.
And I said no.
And I went back and looked at it, and it absolutely was one. So I changed my count to
I don't believe
13.
you. Guys, get in the comments, watch it again, and tell me if there are 12 or 13 fucks. Because I counted 12 both times. I'm missing a fuck. You know what? My favorite fuck is going to be that one. I want to go back and find it.
Okay, so your favorite one is when she's bitten again, and she says, "You fucking kidding me?" And then she says, well, if it had to be one of us, it's gotta be me.
No, that's not my favorite fuck.
My favorite one is, fuck. She's infected.
You should have told me. You should have told me. This is not fair. You didn't tell me. Well, now I know for next week. I'll have a favorite fuck.
This is, people have had conversations about the versatility of this word for so long. And the fact that Ellie can use it in so many different ways. It's just amazing. A
true angel.
You know? Well, thanks again for having this conversation with me, watching this episode twice, and joining me on this podcast. I never know how to end these things. But again, thank you everyone else out there listening for listening to us and for engaging with us on TikTok and Instagram or however you find us. We're glad you found this podcast, and we're glad you can join us on this journey through The Last of Us. If you have any questions or want to send any emails, we do have an email. It's codependentcontent@gmail.com. If you're listening and you want to like send questions or ask or just send your own observations, especially about the next episode, send it to us. You know, we don't record until Mondays, and we'll be able to hopefully read them and maybe read one of them on the air. We do record this live on my Discord channel, and it goes off on different times, you know, but you know, if you join us there, you'll be able to like listen to us do this live and then maybe even ask some questions afterwards, you know, in the stage channel. We'll invite you to like talk as well. Maybe not on the podcast, but we love talking to fans who just want to talk about the episode.
I love talking about my feelings.
But yeah, thank you so much. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.